Nimitz joining you from eTurboNews in Honolulu. With me is Dr. Peter Charlo. It's joining us from College Station in Texas. And we're always checking out the weather. And when I'm looking out of my window here, it seems to be a fairly nice day, a little bit cloudy, but more sunny than cloudy, no rain. And people are at the beach. I can see this from here, and the shopping malls are busy. So it's another beautiful day in paradise. How are things in College Station, Peter?
Well, obviously, there's nobody at the beach here because we're in the middle of Texas, but the weather has not been too bad. This has been a very cool summer for us. So it barely breaks 90 degrees or about 33 degrees Celsius. It is humid. We have a rainstorm almost every afternoon. It's been the rainiest July than most of us can remember. So we know the west coast of the United States is having a terrible drought. We'd like to give them some of our rain. They would probably be very happy about that. But it's okay. I mean, for Texas summer, this has been a very easy summer. So nobody here is complaining.
Well, that's nice. And I know you just returned from a wonderful trip in Israel.
Right.
And, so you must be under jet lag a little bit.
I am a little bit. Yes, it's a long flight because you don't go straight from Tel Aviv to Houston. You have to go via Newark, and then you have a delay in Newark, and so by the time and then it's 2.5 hours from Houston until I get home. So it's a long trip. I think it was about 21 hours in total. But I'm here, ready to go, and there's so much going on in the world of tourism that I guess you have to. I'm a little worried about some of the stuff going on, but also feel invigorated that maybe slowly but surely the skies are opening up, and instead of rain, sunshine will peek through the clouds, the sunshine of renewed tourism development. So that's what I'm hoping for.
And Peter, it really depends on where you are in the world. If you look at the situation in Africa and those that are reading us frequently in eTurboNews, it started all with a revolution in progress in Eswatini. What was brought under control by the government, by the military, it caused a lot of stir, not only in the Kingdom of Eswatini, but also internationally between the United States, China, and Taiwan, because it looks like the real issue here was really that Eswatini is the only African country still recognizing the Republic of China, what people know under Taiwan as the real China, what really upset China. So with this in mind, and human rights issues and non-democratic government in Eswatini, this all brought it together to a melting point. But at the end, what always happens at these type of protests, people are not just going out on the street to protest, they're going out on the street to destroy. And they destroy businesses, they destroy livelihood, they kill people. And that's what makes this very, very dangerous. And unfortunately, this seems to have spilled over to South Africa. The issue is a little bit different. In South Africa, the former president was admitted to jail. He has to serve a jail sentence after he was convicted of a corruption crime. And many people didn't like this. So this now started with isolated protests that turned violent. And in the meantime, the entire country is unsafe. People are locked up and the military is on the streets, and we don't know what is next.
And of course, from a tourism perspective, first of all, you're 100% right that many of these quote unquote peaceful protests become violent. We saw that here in the United States, in Seattle and Portland and the West Coast of the United States, where peaceful protests got out of hand and destroyed much of their tourism industry. And now, of course, the same thing is going to happen in South Africa, or may very well happen, because not many people are going to want to go to the beautiful city of Cape Town or the very dynamic city of Johannesburg if they're afraid they're going to have to be locked up into their hotel for their own personal safety. They're going to wait till the situation calms down. And of course, the other part of that is you don't know where, once you let the genie out of the bottle when it comes to these types of protests, you don't know where else they're going to hit. So they may very well hit other African countries or other places around the world. We see that there's some very difficult riots going on in Cuba right now. And of course, Cuba doesn't have a lot of American tourism, but I've been to Cuba and I've taught at the medical school, and there are tens of thousands of Europeans and people from Latin America who visit Cuba. And if Cuba is perceived to be unsafe, I guess that's going to hurt them. And again, this is kind of a theme that we've often brought up, that the basis of good tourism begins with good safety and a good understanding of the importance of safe and secure tourism, what we call tourism surety. So once again, this is just one more example of how if you don't have a safe environment, you're not going to in the end succeed.
And that's definitely true, and maybe also the reason behind the situation in Africa, what is, I would say, maybe a double exposure of people that are in the tourism industry that are frustrated because there is no tourism, and prices are going up, and people in any sort of life getting frustrated with the lockdowns through COVID. So you can only keep a person in a cage for so long, and this is what's happening. People want to get out, they want to continue their life, and it's not always safe. And to kind of
I think your point is really well taken about people feeling that they've been caged. I recently, like yesterday, got a letter from a friend of mine, somebody that you know. I won't mention his name on the air, but he was telling me that in Sydney, Australia, you're only allowed out for an hour or an hour and a half a day, and
Right.
you're not allowed to go more than 6 miles from your home. And of course, this has totally killed tourism, and there's tremendous frustration and pent-up energy in Australia. And I could even see the desire to travel so much coming back from Israel. The number of people, even if they couldn't go abroad, the number of people going between Houston and Newark was incredible. I mean, the flight, every seat was taken. And when I spoke to people, they said, we want to go someplace. We don't even care where we go. We just want to go someplace. And so again, you see that frustration. I think you're seeing that in Hawaii, which doesn't have any international tourism because the borders are closed, but has a huge amount of national tourism. And again, people just want to go someplace.
Unbelievable. We have more arrivals than we have combined with international travel in normal times. Everything is full here. There are long lines. I don't even think about going to dinner or to lunch in Waikiki because I know there are going to be hours of lines. So I find my little places outside. They're sometimes quite a bit better. Anyway, but it is, yes, it's absolutely mind-boggling. And I think we probably have the only tourism board in the world that is actually actively trying to minimize tourism and cut down on tourism. And they're discussing how less tourists could come here. So we're in a very different situation compared to many countries in the world. I was on a panel just about 3 days ago in Nepal about their situation. There is no tourism. They love to have tourism back. They say we're safe because it's mountains, it's space, and it hasn't started. Then you look at what we just talked about, destinations in Africa, and there is the tourism rebound tour event now coming up the end of the week, where everyone goes to Kenya to attend this conference and is actually looking at help by the Saudi Arabian government. And the minister from Saudi Arabia, as you know, Peter, has been seen everywhere in the world. He was in Cancun.
Yes, this is a really active minister of tourism.
Very active. And I don't think people are really coming to Kenya to talk about African tourism as much as they're talking about getting investments from Saudi. And this is really an interesting development.
It's a real turn of events because Saudi for so long was closed, and now they're becoming really a big player in tourism.
Well, they wanted not only to be a big player, they wanted to be the biggest player in tourism. And we reported about it last night. It just was leaked to us yesterday that Saudi Arabia is actively now trying to move the headquarters of the World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, from Madrid to Riyadh. And UNWTO was in Madrid ever since it was started in the 70s. And that actually gave a certain advantage to the Spanish government in having a permanent seat in the government body of this organization in the Executive Council. And Saudi Arabia wants to have this body. They want it to be a global player, and they already are. Because if you look at the World Travel and Tourism Council claiming to represent the private sector in the industry, and their members are the 200 largest companies in the world, they now have their major operation center no longer in London. They're still in London. They're still headquartered in London. Who knows for how long? But their major operation center is now in Saudi Arabia. And actually, that is in good company because their former CEO, Mexican tourism minister for many years, Gloria Guevara, who was the CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council till about 15 days ago, June 30th, is now the top advisor of the Saudi tourism minister and also lives in Riyadh. So it looks like
you're saying here the whole, when I look at Europe, it looks to me tired. And if you think through, really the center of the world has always been what's known as the Silk Road. And the Middle East has always played a really pivotal role. So I think maybe what we're seeing in tourism is a reflection of the world going back to that pivotal role. And I've gotten to know a lot of people in Saudi Arabia. I'll tell you, they're lovely and wonderful to work with. I really enjoy working with them. But I think we're seeing more and more that Europe feels tired to me. It feels it's exhausted after COVID. And I think you're seeing the rising stars of some of the nations in the Middle East. Certainly, Israel is booming. And I expected, other types of problems, and they just weren't. Brand new roads every place, construction going on every place. The stores are filled, the restaurants are filled. And again, and cooperation between the Middle Eastern states that we've never seen before. And so I think the potential, and of course we don't know if it's true or not, but the possibility that the UNWTO would move to Saudi Arabia does not strike me as impossible. It strikes me as a very, very possible flow. And I think it's kind of a blow to Europe a lot. It's a sign again that Europe appears from the outside to be exhausted.
Yeah, and definitely there is a global trend. We're in for some changes, and we don't know how this world will look like when actually Saudi Arabia controls this sector. We had a situation slightly different in, I think, in 1990 and in 2017, I'm sorry, at the Chengdu General Assembly for UNWTO, when China was trying to take this global lead in tourism and started their own organization in bringing global tourism together. That kind of didn't really work out, but I think Saudi Arabia has the money. I mean, they're spending $45 billion in tourism combined, what includes the relaunch now also of international tourism. And guess what? The Minister of Tourism from Saudi Arabia is in charge of the major fund for this money. So this is not the end of the story. The story will continue.
The story is going to continue. I do think it's interesting. China is really going to be problematic for a while, even though they are getting the Olympics, assuming everybody shows up, which is a whole nother issue. But of course, there's some human rights violations that are very big going on in China. China also, economists really wonder how stable the Chinese economy is. And many say that the Chinese economy could end up kind of just collapsing. It's really a kind of a paper tiger, to use a phrase in reverse. China may be a major power. On the other hand, it may be more of a facade and less of reality. And of course, we don't know that. And of course, there's a lot of anger against China because of COVID. A lot of people, there's still a debate, what started the whole COVID disaster. But certainly a lot of people around the world are very angry at China, and they blame the Chinese fairly or unfairly. We still don't know, but it's there. And so I could see where the Middle East becomes the new shining star.
Yeah, it's, but we're talking about human rights. No country is perfect, and I would say Saudi Arabia is absolutely less than perfect.
No, absolutely, you're right. But it's where you get publicized, and certainly China has received a lot of negative publicity in recent years. Saudi Arabia has received some too, but a lot less.
Yeah, and that is again mostly politically motivated in a way, unfortunately. I think if it wasn't Saudi Arabia, if it wasn't for the money and it wasn't for the strategic positioning of this country, we're going to hear a lot more. But the good sign is maybe Saudi Arabia is changing. I mean, you saw the Minister of Tourism from Saudi Arabia recently with the Bob Marley hat in Jamaica and saying we're in a revolution. This is a revolution in travel and tourism. So maybe this revolution has a completely different future for us. I guess we don't know this yet.
Yes, again, I've worked with and gotten to know many people in Saudi Arabia, and I've never hidden who I was. I've never had to hide, my Jewish faith or anything like that. And it's just a completely different country in those areas coming with tourism. We've worked together. We become really good friends. We care about each other. And, I think that we're seeing maybe not the perception of Saudi Arabia, but maybe some of the really kindness and goodness that is also there. Who knows? We're going to find out. But I agree with the minister. I think they are going through a positive revolution versus, say, Eswatini or South Africa, which may be going through a negative revolution. So we're seeing maybe that's the theme of this evening: revolution for good or for evil.
Yeah, just listen to Bob Marley, so.
Yes. And I like Bob Marley. I think he's great. And, One Love is really terrific. I was on the phone today with Saudi Arabia, with Jamaica, and they're hoping to get tourism reactivated very soon. So maybe, again, not across the world yet, but we are seeing the light starting to shine through the clouds of COVID.
Absolutely, Peter. Well, thank you very much. I hope you get some sleep.
Yes, I'm going to go to sleep now. It's almost 10. It's 9:30 here in Texas, but I get up at 5, so it's time to go to bed. So I hope you have a good rest of your afternoon in Hawaii, and I'm going to look forward to a day tomorrow. I have a bunch of stuff to do with countries around the world, and it'll be an exciting day. And hopefully I'll get to speak to you tomorrow.
Yeah, and Peter, and for everyone watching us here, and you can hear this anytime you want for the next 24 hours. Just go to any of our pages at eTurboNews, and later on, if you want to watch what we said today and you want to watch it in a week from now, go to our YouTube channel. It's linked from eTurboNews, or simply go to to youtube.com/eTurboNews or to livestream.travel, and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube, because every time we have a new session, you would then be notified. What's the easiest way, and it's free. So if you don't listen to Peter's time announcement, because this is not live. It's going to be live in about an hour. It's going to repeat. So please don't sleep in late because Peter told you it's 9:30. But anyways, thank you.
It's 9:30 in Texas on Wednesday night. But one of the things I think we do need to talk about maybe soon is some of the new events that we're planning for the World Tourism Network. And we won't do that tonight because I know it's late in some parts of the world. Certainly it's late in Europe and the East Coast of the US. But maybe tomorrow or the next day, we need to talk about some of the really positive things the World Tourism Network is getting ready to do.
Yeah, and you reminded me of something just to close this. What is important, on Friday, we have the family meeting for the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism, hosted by the World Tourism Network. You can actually be a part of it. You can sign up at worldtourismevents.com, worldtourismevents.com. It's the latest event. Just sign up and you can be part of our live audience with people from everywhere in the world that we believe in peace through tourism. So we hope to see you there. And good night from Hawaii. Aloha from here. And Peter, have a good night. And
thank you. Y'all sleep well, as we say in Texas. Okay. Bye-bye. Take care.
With tourism recovery for Africa, the Saudi Arabian tourism revolution is continuing. When the Saudi Minister of Tourism Ahmed Al-Hadi was seen in Jamaica wearing a Bob Marley hat, a travel and tourism revolution had just started. World tourism needs help, and Saudi Arabia is there again, playing the missing role for the United States of tourism in waving the Saudi flag high and prominent. Saudi Arabia is on the way to relocate UNWTO from Madrid to Riyadh to be the host and new headquarter of the World Tourism Organization, UNWTO, but is already a host for the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, regional office, and a number of other global initiatives. Kenya invited delegates to the upcoming summit on African tourism recovery on Friday to this East African country. Many of the delegates can't wait to meet with the Saudi Arabian Tourism Minister Ahmed Al-Hadi, who most likely will be the most important shining star at the event. Kenya's Secretary of Tourism Najib Balala also is a global leader who has been involved in many global initiatives, including the eTurboNews supported World Tourism Network and the African Tourism Board. Together with Jamaica's Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett, Balala was made a tourism hero by WTN last year. Jamaica's Minister of Tourism Edmund Bartlett just arrived in Kenya and will be speaking at the summit in his capacity as a well-respected global thought leader on tourism resilience and recovery. He will be presenting his keynote address for the African summit. While in Kenya, the Jamaica minister will sign an MOU with the Satellite Global Tourism Resilience Center at the Kenyatta University after a tour on Thursday. Kenya's President Kenyatta serves as the honorary co-chair, representing Africa, of the GTRCMC, along with Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness and Marie-Louise Colero-Preca, former President of Malta. The highlight of Bartlett's visit to Kenya, of course, may be the continuation of investment talks with the Minister of Tourism for Saudi Arabia, Ahmed Al-Hadi, which officially began in June when the first Jamaica-Saudi Arabia bilateral conference focused on inward investments to foster economic growth and the creation of new local jobs for his Caribbean country. When Bartlett and Al-Hadi were seen as a revolutionary team, it was clear Saudi Arabia has changed and is continuing to change fast, with billions supporting this revolution. A revolutionary team. At that time, Minister Al-Hadi led a high-level delegation during his recent visit to Jamaica, including Abdurrahman Bakir, Vice President for Investment Attraction and Development in the Ministry of Investment in Saudi Arabia, and Hamad Al-Balawi, General Manager for Investment Management and Oversight in the Saudi Ministry of Tourism, attended. Balala, Bartlett, and Al-Hadi may be a winning combination by local leaders with a global approach to bring some hope to Africa's hurting travel and tourism industry. Cuthbert Nkube, Chairman of the African Tourism Board, the facilitator for Project Hope under the guidance of former UNWTO Secretary General Dr. Talib Rifai, said the African Tourism Board is standing by and is ready to assist and coordinate any initiative that may emerge out of the important upcoming discussion on African tourism recovery. Stability is not only important to redevelop the badly needed travel and tourism industry on our continent, but also stability and security for many of our countries. Saudi Arabia's Minister Al-Hadi, who was chairman of the powerful multi-billion US dollar Saudi Fund for Development, expressed a vision of catalyzing the expansion of Saudi Arabian business operations in the world. A tourism recovery summit was held in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in May of this year. It focused on the new era the tourism sector was entering and explored ways to also rebuild the African tourism sector that has been impacted negatively by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Kenya summit is expected to explore the opportunity for stronger partnerships between African countries and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and to mitigate the pandemic's effects and boost resilience.
Bangkok airports to serve as COVID-19 field hospitals. Thailand Transport Minister Saksayam Chaitrab said this weekend that the arrangement for another 7,000 beds was being made due to the current coronavirus situation in the form of COVID-19 field hospitals, as a large number of patients are waiting for treatment. COVID-19 field hospitals will be set up in areas not being used at 2 airports. Suvarnabhumi Airport alone will be able to accommodate over 3 times as many patients as Busarikham Hospital. Japan has stepped in with 1.5 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccinations to help Thailand in its battle against COVID-19. The unused areas of Suvarnabhumi and Dongmuang airports will both be used for the setting up of field hospitals. Saksayam said the government has finalized a temporary lease with Airports of Thailand, because the lease for Busarikham Hospital at Impact Muang Thong Thani in Nonthaburi province will expire in August. According to Mr. Saksayam, The hospital at Suvarnabhumi Airport will be able to accommodate more than 3 times the number of patients at Busarakam Hospital. In addition, Don Mueang Airport is in the process of preparing a warehouse building for the setting up of a field hospital, which will contain approximately 2,000 beds for patients with mild symptoms. Japan steps in to help. The Thai government held an official ceremony on July 12 to receive 1.5 million doses of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine donated by the government of Japan to help fight the spread of COVID-19. At the ceremony, the Minister of Public Health Anutin Charnvirakul and the Japanese ambassador to Thailand Nashita Kazuya represented the two governments, while the Prime Minister General Prachunnotcha remotely presided over the ceremony via video conference. The Prime Minister said this vaccine donation reflects close relations and mutual determination between Thailand and Japan to tackle the COVID-19 crisis through vaccination, stressing this donation from the Japanese government will help more people in Thailand having access to the vaccine, in complement to the supplies secured by the Thai government. He said Thailand is ready to move past this crisis alongside Japan, without deserting one another. The Japanese ambassador on this occasion delivered a message from the Prime Minister of Japan Yoshihide Suga to the Thai Prime Minister, while expressing his respect towards the Thai government's measures to contain COVID-19 and hoping this vaccine donation will help Thailand's vaccine rollout runs more smoothly. The AstraZeneca vaccine donated by the Japanese government was produced in Japan under contract from AstraZeneca. They have been successfully delivered to Thailand in the evening of 9th of July, after the signing of donation agreement on 19th of June. The agreement calls for the Thai government to use these donated doses appropriately for the enhancement of the healthcare and medical sectors, while prohibiting the Thai government from using these doses for military reasons, or from delivering these donated vaccines to a third-party organizations or governments without consent from the government of Japan. Georgia not LGBT friendly and UNWTO remains silence. Tourism means peace, global understanding and to explore other cultures. It also means equality and tolerance. The Republic of Georgia has shown little understanding after a cameraman was badly hurt in reporting on the cancellation of gay pride due to violence. Pride is not only a global movement for the LGBTQ community to come together and show the flag, party, talk, and have fun, it's also a big tourism event in many countries in the world. In the Republic of Georgia, hundreds rallied in the capital, Tbilisi, on Sunday after the death of Alexander Lashkarova, one of several journalists assaulted as violent groups ransacked an LGBT+ campaign office, prompting activists to call off a pride celebration in this country. The person in charge of the World Tourism Organization, UNWTO Secretary General Zurab Palilikashvili, did not want to comment on this problem in Georgia. Zurab is from Georgia. IATA is an affiliated member of the UNWTO, the World Tourism Organization. In 2019, UNWTO has a Secretary General from the Republic of Georgia who did not want to comment on a disturbing situation in his country after members of the LGBTQ community were attacked, forcing the cancellation of Gay Pride, a travel and tourism spectacular in many countries. Scuffles broke out in Georgia's parliament on Monday as journalists and opposition politicians tried to enter the lower house in protest over the death of a cameraman who was beaten up during violence against LGBT activists last week. Hundreds rallied in the capital Tbilisi on Sunday after the death of Alexander Lashkarova, one of several journalists who were badly hurt as violent groups ransacked an LGBT+ campaign office, prompting activists to call off their Pride March. The U.S. State Department on Tuesday called for calm in the Republic of Georgia after the death of a cameraman beaten up during violence against LGBT activists and said those who attacked peaceful protesters and journalists should be prosecuted. State Department spokesman Ned Price told a regular news briefing that Washington was following the situation in Georgia and was committed to seeing that those responsible are held accountable. The safety of every Georgian journalist, and the credibility of democracy in Georgia, in fact, require that every individual who attacked peaceful protesters and journalists on July 5 and 6, or those who incited violence, they must be identified, they should be arrested and prosecuted to the full extent of the law, Price said. We remind Georgia's leaders and law enforcement of their responsibility to protect all of those exercising their constitutional rights. We remind them of their responsibility to protect journalists exercising the freedom of the press. World tourism needs help, and Saudi Arabia is responding. The global tourism world and its leaders are shifting. Every country is fighting for its own survival in the times of the pandemic, while Saudi Tourism Minister Ahmed Al-Khatib and Jamaica's minister see a global solution becoming a global force of good for the industry. COVID-19 has killed tourism in many parts of the world since March 2020. The industry is crying out for money, help and leadership, and Ahmed Al-Khatib, Minister of Tourism of Saudi Arabia, responded in a big way. Traditionally known for a $12 billion a year religious tourism industry, Saudi Arabia developed the Red Sea Project and has been spending billions of dollars in the development of tourism in the kingdom, and now also for the relaunch of international tourism. As a tourism newcomer to the Western world, with the money available to spend, Saudi Arabia managed to move from the new kid on the block to the leading force of global tourism before anyone even realized it. The world is knocking on Saudi Arabia's door, and such guests are let in and treated well. This is the Arabian way. Ahmed Al-Khatib, Minister of Tourism for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, occupied the post of President of Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority between May 2016 and June 2018. Prior he served as the Minister of Health. He has also worked as an advisor at the Saudi Royal Court. It started with the Red Sea Project that was created as a unique, luxury tourism destination that will embrace nature, culture, and adventure, setting new standards in sustainable development and positioning Saudi Arabia on the global tourism map. Saudi Arabia invests heavily in building state-of-the-art tourism infrastructure. Only in September 2019, Saudi Arabia started issuing tourist visas to citizens of Western countries. Within the first 10 days, Saudi Arabia announced that 24,000 visitors arrived in the kingdom for the first time. It was the first time traditional tourism became a reality for a country that had been closed to the world, except for religious tourism. The revenue for religious tourism in 2019 was $12 billion. Saudi Arabia is not only a key player in the region, it plays an important role in stabilizing the global economy. The kingdom's Vision 2030 closely aligns with the core G20 objectives of macroeconomic stability, sustainable development, empowerment of women, enhanced human capital, and increased flow of trade and investment. A tourism development fund worth billions of dollars, which was approved by Saudi Arabia's Council of Ministers, collaborates with private and investment banks to support private sector developments and incentivize further investment across the industry. Most of the world is struggling to keep tourism in business, while Saudi Arabia is investing billions to position the kingdom as a global center in this sector. Hiring the most powerful woman in tourism, the WTTC CEO Gloria Guevara as an advisor to the minister shows the country is serious, and intentions are clear. Jamaica and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have initiated discussions aimed at facilitating cooperation and investment in tourism and other key areas, following a series of meetings between Minister of Tourism, Honorable Edmund Bartlett. It appears when calling on Saudi Arabia, the kingdom responds with friendship, money, and global brand names ready to assist or brainstorm. Saudi Arabia became the second chapter in the World Tourism Network, the organization behind the global rebuilding. Travel discussion. Tourism and opportunities are enormous in and for Saudi Arabia. WTN board member Riyadh Habis from Basira Conferences and Exhibition introduced a panel of high-level tourism leaders in Saudi Arabia, but the best is yet to come. The demand for tourism in the kingdom for Western tourists is there. Visitors are ready to explore the history of the region and experience firsthand the fabled hospitality and fascinating culture of Saudi Arabia. Listen to the discussion from December 2029. U2.B. Relocating UNWTO from Madrid to Riyadh seals the United States of tourism. There will be a new tomorrow for tourism. This new tomorrow, or some say the new normal, may have already started. It appears Saudi Arabia emerges as a clear thinker and leader. Saudi Arabia is emerging as the new giant for the global travel and tourism industry, bringing leading brand names and sectors of tourism leadership together. Moving the UNWTO headquarters from Madrid to Riyadh would be the most bold move ever done, and Saudi Arabia seems determined. Saudi Arabia may have a chance to lead tourism to the next phase after COVID. At the same time, the kingdom also has a chance to correct some wrongs in the UNWTO election process. The travel and tourism world needs some help in getting back on track. In the global structure, the World Travel and Tourism Council WTTC is representing the most productive and influential members in the private travel and tourism industry. It's essential that WTTC can communicate and coordinate with the public sector. The public sector is represented by the UN-affiliated agency, the World Tourism Organization UNWTO. Since UNWTO Secretary General Zurab Kashfilas took the chair at UNWTO, the World Tourism Organization became an agency with many secrets, including a disconnect to WTTC. Saudi Arabia gets it. The kingdom has the money and the influence to put a new normal together and shape the future of world tourism. China tried this after the UNWTO General Assembly in Chengdu, when Zurab was voted into power. China formed the World Tourism Alliance. This organization, however, never took off. The global tourism world is in distress. Every business, every country is fighting for its own survival in the times of the pandemic. While many are cutting down on most expenses, Saudi Arabia is spending money on tourism like no country was ever able to do, billions and billions of dollars. Tourism Minister Ahmed Al-Khatib has been seen traveling the world in style and always with a large delegation of advisors. Most likely he had networked by far more, and by far wider than the UNWTO Secretary General. The Saudi delegation always is the star at every event. In April this year, WTTC was able to pull off the first global summit after COVID-19 and united the world of tourism in Cancun, Mexico. With a little help from Saudi Arabia represented by Ahmed Al-Khatib, the Minister of Tourism for the Kingdom, some delegates attending the WTTC Global Summit went home with a glimmer of hope after meeting with the Saudi minister. He was called the shining star of world tourism. 2 weeks after this successful WTTC summit, the CEO of WTTC and the host of the summit, former Minister of Tourism for Mexico, Gloria Guevara, announced she will move to Saudi Arabia in July to become an advisor to the Saudi tourism minister. In other words, the Saudi minister just hired the most influential woman in tourism as his advisor. Gloria is now in Riyadh working for the Saudi government. The Saudi minister at the time said, "We have a strong national heritage and thousands of unique stories to be told." Gloria brings international expertise and a tremendous global network from her time representing the global tourism and travel sector as the CEO of WTTC and direct experience with evolving a nascent tourism industry from her time as Secretary of Tourism in Mexico, that will help us as our large-scale investment in tourism moves to the next level. The minister is correct. Gloria is not alone in her new neighborhood. A regional center for WTTC was opened as a gift by the Saudi Ministry of Tourism. Also, the World Tourism Organization UNWTO set up a regional office in Riyadh to support the growth of Middle East's tourism sector as it recovers from the coronavirus pandemic. The office covers 13 countries within the region and serves as a platform to build long-term growth for the sector and human capital development in the travel and tourism sector in the region. The office includes a dedicated statistics center whose objective is to become the leading authority on tourism statistics for the region. The final step is in the making according to reliable eTurboNews sources. It is moving the World Tourism Organization from Spain to Saudi Arabia. The UN-affiliated agency has been in Madrid, Spain since its formation on November 1, 1975. This gave Spain a permanent seat and the voting power in the Executive Council, the governing organ of the World Tourism Organization. Relocating UNWTO to Saudi Arabia would be a giant step and an important change for global tourism. It would give the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia not only a lead in this industry, but a permanent executive council position. Such a step must be approved by the General Assembly scheduled for October this year in Morocco. Read UNWTO General Assembly Morocco, a secret not yet revealed? According to eTurboNews sources, the government of Spain reacted disappointed and is strongly opposing to such a step. It appears this move may have been already planned in September 2017 at the UNWTO General Assembly in Chengdu, China. UNWTO General Assembly 2017. It may explain why Saudi Arabia supported Zurab Kashfil in his questionable election in China, and his re-election drive for UNWTO SG against the candidate from Enigbaring Bahrain Himay Al-Khalifa. Both former UNWTO Secretary Generals, Dr. Taleb Rifai and Francesco Frangilli opposed the way this election took place. They wrote an open letter and a call to restore desync in the UNWTO election process. This advocacy project was an initiative by the World Tourism Network, a private organization with tourism leaders in 127 countries, and had the signature of many leaders. Former UNWTO Assistant Secretary General and former WTTC CEO Professor Jeffrey Lippman. Louis D'Amore, founder and president of the International Institute for Peace Through Tourism (EAT), and Jürgen Steinmetz, chairman of the newly established World Tourism Network, signed their name in support of the letter. UNWTO's performance in world tourism has been questioned behind the scene by many. According to eTurboNews sources, countries had been reaching out to Saudi Arabia for help. There is a growing lobby of support building to move UNWTO to Saudi Arabia. The kingdom has been an excellent host and friend to the industry on so many levels. However, voices of opposition are saying this would give Saudi Arabia too much control over the global travel and tourism industry. Others are referring to human rights issues and equality in the kingdom. The UNWTO General Assembly would need to approve the recommendation by the UNWTO Executive Council in January to confirm Zurab Pahlavi Kashfulis for a second term. Saudi Arabia is opening the door to bring the world of tourism together. It could correct some wrongs and set the path for a post-COVID-19 tourism industry future. eTurboNews reached out to UNWTO SG Special Advisor Anita Mendirata and to Marcelo Risi, Director of Communications, World Tourism Organization. There was no response.
Tourism Fiji announces new CEO. Brent Hill brings over 16 years of experience in tourism and digital marketing, advertising, branding, communications, campaign, and executive strategy to Fiji's National Tourism Office. When border restrictions ease and travel resumes, Fiji will need dynamism and creativity in marketing itself as an attractive, aspirational and safe destination. Restoring tourism activity will not only restore jobs for hundreds of thousands of Fijians, but it will also significantly contribute to the revival of the economy through the industry's multiplier effect. Brent Hill replaces former CEO Matt Stokel, whose tenure ended in December 2020. Tourism Fiji has announced the appointment of experienced tourism marketing senior executive, Brent Hill, as Chief Executive Officer. Hill, who most recently was the Executive Director of Marketing for the South Australian Tourism Commission, brings over 16 years of experience in tourism and digital marketing, advertising, branding, communications, campaign, and executive strategy to Fiji's National Tourism Office. He replaces former CEO Matt Stokel, whose tenure ended in December 2020. Commenting on Hill's appointment, Tourism Fiji Chairman Mr. Andre Viljoen said, "We're delighted to welcome someone of Brent's caliber to this critically important role, not just for Fijian tourism, but for the Fijian economy." Brent shone through in the extremely rigorous recruitment process initiated and conducted by the board with PwC's assistance for a CEO to lead Tourism Fiji in these unprecedented times when international tourism activity has been zero for over a year now. His proven expertise, experience, and ideas for the industry's revival are a perfect fit for Fiji's current requirements. Mr. Viljoen added, when border restrictions ease and travel resumes, Fiji will need dynamism and creativity in marketing itself as an attractive, aspirational and safe destination. We are in the same situation as every other leisure tourism destination in the world. All of us are going for the same markets, which are now smaller with lower discretionary spending ability. Brent is highly regarded in the industry given his many accomplishments, and we will need his wide range of existing relationships and management skills with key global trade partners to market our destination, and his excellent communications skills to rally our industry and stakeholders to a common purpose. His immediate focus will be to work with the board and Fiji's extremely competent health authorities to restore tourism activity. Fijian Minister for Tourism, the Honourable Fayez Koya, also welcomed Brent Hill's appointment as Tourism Fiji CEO, stating, "Restoring tourism activity will not only restore jobs for hundreds of thousands of Fijians, but it will also significantly contribute to the revival of the economy through the industry's multiplier effect. We are turning the corner now with the rollout of our national vaccination program in anticipation of market re-entry beyond our traditional markets. This sets the scene for Mr. Hill and Tourism Fiji to position Fiji as the ideal destination for those that are ready to travel. We will also look to him to pair our globally renowned values of true Fijian hospitality, friendliness and authenticity to the demands and expectations of the modern-day traveller. With Mr. Hill at the helm of Tourism Fiji, we are a step closer to strategically positioning Fiji in the global market again." In his immediate past role as Executive Director of Marketing for the South Australian Tourism Commission, Hill was credited for growing total tourism expenditure in the region from $5.3 billion Australian dollar to $8.1 billion Australian dollar in a 4-year period, a 53% increase. He also led South Australian tourism's recovery following the devastating bushfires in the state by developing successful campaigns to regenerate industry business. He was also responsible for an $30 million Australian dollar annual marketing budget and 55 staff across the world to market South Australia. Hill has a Bachelor of Commerce degree majoring in marketing and accounting from the University of Adelaide, is a certified practicing marketer, FARMI, and a patron of the Australian Marketing Institute. He has multiple awards for marketing campaigns over the years, and between 2018 and 2020, has ranked in the top 25 of CMO magazine's top 50 marketers in Australia. Hill is a patron of the South Australian Marketing Institute, a board member of the Adelaide Thunderbirds netball organisation, ATDW, Goldilocks Smart Suits, and Ripple Effect. The Minister for Tourism, Board and Management of Tourism Fiji, take this opportunity to thank the acting CEO, Robert Thompson. Mr. Thompson has been a remarkable support to both the industry and government, having led the organisation during this difficult time.
Air Astana returns to profit. Strong market growth and a preference for air travel over long rail journeys have transformed Kazakhstan into the world's fastest-growing domestic market. The two brands, Air Astana and RLCC Flyeristan, have both performed well on domestic routes. Passengers carried by Air Astana Group increased by 91% to 2.97 million. Whether the recovery will be sustainable will come down to a race between COVID variants and vaccine take-up. Kazakhstan's Air Astana Group has registered a net profit of $4.9 million for the first 6 months of 2021, recovering from a loss of $66.2 million for the period January to June 2020. Passengers carried increased by 91% to 2.97 million, of which 2.5 million were carried on domestic routes, an increase of 125%. Commenting on the turnaround, President and CEO Peter Foster, the two brands, Air Astana and RLCC Flyeristan, have both performed well on domestic routes. Strong market growth and a preference for air travel over long rail journeys have transformed Kazakhstan into the world's fastest-growing domestic market, with 31% passenger growth over 2019, undoubtedly stimulated by Flyeristan's ultra-low fares. Flyeristan was launched in May 2019. Whilst international capacity remains at 45% of the level of 2019, Foster pointed out that higher yields on regional routes, coupled with high demand on lifestyle routes to the Maldives, Red Sea, Montenegro, Dubai, Turkey, Georgia, and Sri Lanka, have also contributed to the turnaround, assisted by regular cargo charters on our converted Boeing 767. Foster cautioned on guidance for the remainder of the year. However, COVID case numbers are again moving in the wrong direction in Central Asia and many of the countries to where we are flying. Whether the recovery will be sustainable will come down to a race between COVID variants and vaccine take-up. Air Astana is a joint venture owned by the Samra Kazina Wealth Fund, 51%, and BAE Systems plc 49%. It presently operates 36 aircraft, of which 10 A320s are operated by Flyeristan.
IATA, tax is not the answer to aviation sustainability. Reliance on taxation as the solution for cutting aviation emissions in the EU's Fit for 55 proposal is counterproductive to the goal of sustainable aviation. Aviation is committed to decarbonization as a global industry. Sustainable aviation fuels which reduce emissions by up to 80% compared to traditional jet fuel. Aviation's near-term vision is to provide sustainable, affordable air transport for all European citizens with SAF-powered fleets, operating with efficient air traffic management. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, warned that the reliance on taxation as the solution for cutting aviation emissions in the EU's Fit for 55 proposal is counterproductive to the goal of sustainable aviation. EU policy needs to support practical emission reduction measures such as incentives for sustainable aviation fuels, SAF, and modernization of air traffic management. Aviation is committed to decarbonization as a global industry. We don't need persuading or punitive measures like taxes to motivate change. In fact, taxes siphon money from the industry that could support emissions-reducing investments in fleet renewal and clean technologies. To reduce emissions, we need governments to implement a constructive policy framework that, most immediately, focuses on production incentives for SAF and delivering the Single European Sky, said Willie Walsh, IATA's Director General. Comprehensive approach. Achieving aviation decarbonization requires a combination of measures. These include sustainable aviation fuels which reduce emissions by up to 80% compared to traditional jet fuel. Insufficient supply and high prices have limited airline uptake to 120 million liters in 2021, a small fraction of the 350 billion liters that airlines would consume in a normal year. Market-based measures to manage emissions until technology solutions are fully developed. The industry supports the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, CORSIA, as a global measure for all international aviation. It avoids creating a patchwork of uncoordinated national or regional measures such as the EU Emissions Trading Scheme, that can undermine international cooperation. Overlapping schemes can lead to the same emissions being paid for more than once. IATA is extremely concerned by the Commission's proposal that European states would no longer implement closure on all international flights. Single European Sky, SES, to reduce unnecessary emissions from fragmented air traffic management, ATM, and resulting inefficiencies. Modernizing European ATM through the SES initiative would cut Europe's aviation emissions between 6–10%, but national governments continue to delay implementation. Radical new clean technologies. While it is unlikely that electric or hydrogen propulsion could have a significant impact on aviation emissions within the EU Fit for 55 timeframe of 2030, the development of these technologies is ongoing and needs to be supported. Aviation's near-term vision is to provide sustainable, affordable air transport for all European citizens with SAF-powered fleets, operating with efficient air traffic management. We should all be worried that the EU's big idea to decarbonize aviation is making jet fuel more expensive through tax. That will not get us to where we need to be. Taxation will destroy jobs. Incentivizing SAF will improve energy independence and create sustainable jobs. The focus must be on encouraging the production of SAF, and delivering the single European sky, said Walsh. Promoting SAF. The most practical near-term solution to reducing emissions is SAF. Energy transitions are successful when production incentives drive down the price of alternative fuels while driving supplies up. The EU Fit for 55 proposal does not include direct measures that will achieve this. Without specific measures to reduce SAF costs, it does, however, propose a mandate to increase SAF utilization to 2% of jet fuel use by 2025 and at least 5% by 2030. Making SAF cheaper will accelerate aviation's energy transition and improve Europe's competitiveness as a green economy. But making jet fuel more expensive through taxation scores an own goal on competitiveness that does little to accelerate the commercialization of SAF, said Walsh. Mandating a gradual transition to SAF is a less efficient policy compared to comprehensive production incentives, but it may contribute to making SAF more affordable and widely available in Europe, but only under the following key conditions. It is limited to EU-only flights. This will limit the negative impacts on the competitiveness of European air transport and potential political challenges from other countries. It is accompanied by policy measures to ensure a competitive market and appropriate production incentives. The mandated use of SAF must not allow energy companies to engage in uncompetitive practices with the resulting high costs being borne by airlines and passengers. It is targeted at locations which have substantial airline operations and close proximity to SAF refineries. Concrete actions on single European sky are urgently needed. The SES has been on the drawing board for 20 years but has made little progress despite the promise of a 6–10% improvement in environmental performance, safer operations and reduced delays. Europe's national politicians are quick to lecture airlines on the efforts industry should be making on the environment. But they are silent when it comes to areas of their own responsibility. Just recently the European Council failed to show any leadership to cut emissions by harmonizing European air traffic management. Moreover, the constant absence of political support from states on the SES proposals undermines the credibility of the Fit for 55 proposal and the credibility of Europe's determination to drive real solutions for sustainability, said Walsh. Violent riots break out in Paris over mandatory COVID-19 jabs and health passes. "The pass shall not pass," was the chant of demonstrators besieging the prefecture building in Nantes. Mass protests all over France took place on Bastille Day. Violent clashes erupted between protesters and police in Paris. Police fired tear gas at demonstrators who threw rocks and bottles, set construction equipment on fire in Paris, and picketed state buildings. Thousands of protesters have taken to the streets of Paris to demonstrate against French government's decision to make coronavirus vaccination mandatory for health workers and to introduce a health pass to access bars, restaurants, theaters and other public venues. Mass protests all over the country took place on Bastille Day, the anniversary of the 1789 storming of the notorious Paris dungeon that kicked off the French Revolution. In Paris, police fired tear gas to suppress the demonstrators. Protests took place across France on Wednesday with heated clashes erupting with police in Paris. Police fired tear gas at demonstrators who threw rocks and bottles, set construction equipment on fire in Paris, and picketed state buildings across France, in response to President Emmanuel Macron's anti-COVID-19 moves. Photos and videos from French capital city showed protesters erecting barricades from materials found at a construction site. Some building machinery left unattended was apparently set on fire as well. In Paris, eyewitness footage captured people fleeing from tear gas as police were deployed in sizable numbers to break up the demonstrations. Major city arteries could be seen blocked by protesters and police. In one instance, a canister of tear gas landed near a restaurant terrace, causing diners to scatter inside. Social media posts about the protests included the hashtags #PassSanitaire and #VaccinObligatoire, referring to Monday's announcement by Macron that healthcare workers will have to get vaccinated against COVID-19 by September 15, or face losing their jobs. Smaller protests took place elsewhere in the city, with some groups convening at Place de Clichy. French outrage wasn't limited to Paris, either. Videos from around the country show protests in Toulouse and Marseille in the south, Haute-Savoie in the southeast, and Nantes in the west, among other places. Demonstrations were also held in Corsica, where people gathered to denounce what they decried as an attack on individual freedoms, demanding the right to own their choice over COVID-19 vaccinations. According to online reports, more than 1,000 people marched in the southern French city of Perpignan.
Lufthansa flies 76,000 people from Frankfurt Airport on first vacation weekend. Start of the summer vacations in Hesse, Lufthansa recommends arriving at the airport in good time. With 192 destinations, the airline offers even more flight destinations from Frankfurt this summer. Lufthansa offers more than 1,800 weekly connections, 55% of the connections from pre-corona times. Comprehensive hygiene protection concept, which the Lufthansa Group introduced at the beginning of the pandemic, continues to ensure safe flying. Start of the vacations in Hesse, 76,000 people take off on vacation with Lufthansa from Frankfurt Airport on the first vacation weekend. With 192 destinations, the airline offers even more flight destinations from Frankfurt than in the summer of 2019, and, with more than 1,800 weekly connections, 55% of the connections from pre-corona times, with a rising trend. At the same time, many states continue to require additional documents such as test or vaccination certificates. For this reason, Lufthansa recommends that its passengers obtain information in advance and arrive at the airport on time. Those who are worried about not having the right certificates for the trip can have them checked by a Lufthansa service center on selected flights up to 72 hours before departure. These can include proof of tests, survived COVID-19 disease and vaccinations. Confirmations of digital entry applications can also be checked. This ensures in advance that the required documents are available. Lufthansa recommends that its guests continue to carry the original printed certificates with them on the trip, in addition to the digital proof. Which documents are necessary and where COVID-19 tests can also be made for the return journey can be found on the Lufthansa website. For return travel to Germany, antigen self-tests using the video ident procedure are now also accepted and can also be purchased online. For a relaxed trip, Lufthansa recommends using the wide range of online services for check-in and baggage check-in. At Frankfurt Airport, passengers can check in their baggage free of charge at the existing drive-thru from now until the end of the vacations. This is conveniently possible from 23 to 2 hours before departure, if required, also directly combined with a drive-thru COVID test. To avoid long waiting times at the security checkpoints, you should also check in your hand luggage at the baggage machines if possible. For flights with very high occupancy rates, Lufthansa passengers receive a message by email before departure that they can check in their hand luggage free of charge. Less carry-on baggage at the gate and in the cabin ensures smooth boarding and contributes to a punctual departure. Lufthansa offers special services for families to start their vacation in a relaxed manner. Parents with small children can use the family check-in areas in Frankfurt. Lufthansa employees at the particularly family-friendly counters 65 to 68 in Hall A accept baggage and strollers. However, it is always advisable to reserve seats and use online check-in from 23 hours before departure. Passenger health and safety is a top priority. A comprehensive hygiene protection concept, which the Lufthansa Group introduced at the beginning of the pandemic, continues to ensure safe flying. Both product and procedures along the entire travel chain were adapted to customer wishes and regulatory requirements.
Ground and on-board procedures have been modified to reduce direct contacts. In addition, Lufthansa Group Airlines aircraft are equipped with so-called HEPA filters, which clean the cabin air of impurities such as dust, bacteria, and viruses, making it comparable to that in an operating room. Travelers are asked to inform themselves in advance about the applicable regulations. The mask requirement also applies to vaccinated and recovering persons. Those who are still planning a trip now can do so with the airlines of the Lufthansa Group without any worries. Full flexibility in rebooking options continues to apply. All airline fares can continue to be rebooked free of charge as often as desired until July 31, 2021, if the rebooking is also made by then. After that, passengers can rebook their ticket one more time free of charge. The newly booked flight can be within the entire ticket validity up to 1 year in the future. The route can also be changed at will, depending on availability.
IATA urges states to follow WHO guidance on international travel. WHO guidance recommends a risk-based approach to implementing measures related to COVID-19 and international travel. Do not require proof of COVID-19 vaccination as a mandatory condition for entry or exit. Remove measures such as testing and/or quarantine requirements for travelers who are fully vaccinated or have had a confirmed previous COVID-19 infection within the past 6 months. Ensure alternative pathways for unvaccinated individuals through testing so that they are able to travel internationally. The International Air Transport Association, IATA, called on states to follow new guidance on travel from the World Health Organization, WHO. The guidance recommends a risk-based approach to implementing measures related to COVID-19 and international travel. It will be presented to the WHO COVID-19 International Health Regulations Emergency Committee on Thursday, the 15th of July. Specifically, WHO recommended that governments do not require proof of COVID-19 vaccination as a mandatory condition for entry or exit. Remove measures such as testing and/or quarantine requirements for travelers who are fully vaccinated or have had a confirmed previous COVID-19 infection within the past 6 months. Ensure alternative pathways for unvaccinated individuals through testing so that they are able to travel internationally. The WHO recommends RT-PCR tests or antigen detection rapid diagnostic tests, AGRDTs, for this purpose. Only implement test and/or quarantine measures for international travelers on a risk-based manner with policies on testing and quarantine regularly reviewed to ensure they are lifted when no longer necessary. These common sense, risk-based recommendations from WHO, if followed by states, will allow for international air travel to resume while minimizing the chance of importing COVID-19. As WHO notes, and as the latest UK testing data proves, international travelers are not a high-risk group in terms of COVID-19. Out of 1.65 million tests carried out on arriving international passengers in the UK since February, only 1.4% were positive for COVID-19. It's long past time for governments to incorporate data into risk-based decision-making process for reopening borders, said Willie Walsh, IATA's Director General. WHO also called on states to communicate in a timely and adequate manner any changes to international health-related measures and requirements. Consumers face a maze of confusing, uncoordinated and fast-changing border entry rules that discourage them from traveling, causing economic hardship across those employed in the travel and tourism sector. According to our latest passenger survey, 70% of recent travelers thought the rules were a challenge to understand, said Walsh. Additionally, WHO encouraged states to look at bilateral, multilateral, and regional agreements, particularly among neighboring counties, with the aim of facilitating the recovery of key socio-economic activities including tourism, for which international travel plays a vital role. The pandemic has put more than 46 million jobs, normally supported by aviation, at risk. By incorporating these latest WHO recommendations into their border opening strategies, states can begin to reverse the economic damage of the past 18 months and put the world on the road to recovery, said Walsh.
Hotel industry launches ad campaign to fill 100,000 open jobs. To entice more workers to join the industry, hotels are offering employees more competitive pay, flexible scheduling, and additional benefits, including paid time off, health care benefits, retirement savings and more. New advertising campaign across 5 major hotel markets announced. Hotels, especially those in urban markets, have a long road to regaining what we lost during the pandemic. Hotels are committed to attracting, retaining, and educating individuals for lifelong careers in a growing and vibrant field. To help fill thousands of open hotel jobs and communicate the benefits of a career in the hotel industry, today the American Hotel and Lodging Association (AHLA) and its charitable giving arm, the American Hotel and Lodging Foundation (AHLA Foundation), announced a new advertising campaign across 5 major hotel markets. The new advertisement will run until early August on digital platforms, radio and in print in select markets. With leisure travel resuming, the hotel industry needs to fill thousands of open positions to meet an uptick in consumer travel demand. To entice more workers to join the industry, hotels are offering employees more competitive pay, flexible scheduling, and additional benefits, including paid time off, health care benefits, retirement savings, and more. With open positions in housekeeping, management, food and beverage, guest services and more, hotels also provide transferable skills that allow for career opportunities around the globe. On the heels of the worst economic crisis on record for our industry, hotels are now facing a rapidly emerging issue of staffing shortages, particularly in vacation destinations. Hotels are in the midst of a hiring spree as we welcome the return of leisure travelers, and this campaign will help raise national awareness about open positions and the benefits of a career in hospitality, said Chip Rogers, president and CEO of AHLA. Hotels, especially those in urban markets, have a long road to regaining what we lost during the pandemic. Ensuring we can fill positions to meet a rise in guest demand is a critical step as we work toward a full recovery. Hotels are committed to attracting, retaining, and educating individuals for lifelong careers in a growing and vibrant field. People are the heart of hospitality, and the AHLA Foundation is proud to build on its legacy of opening doors of opportunity for those looking to pursue hospitality careers, said Rosanna Maeta, president and CEO of the AHLA Foundation. With thousands of open hotel positions nationwide, from management to guest services, the AHLA Foundation offers programs to help prospective and existing hotel employees gain new skills and reach their dreams while creating lifelong, fulfilling careers. The hotel industry offers 200 different career paths with transferable skills that allow workers to move across positions throughout the global hotel industry. Through the AHLA Foundation, the hotel and lodging industry supports employees at all stages of their careers by providing professional development workshops, apprenticeships, and academic scholarships. With 80% of entry-level workers eligible for a promotion in less than 1 year and 50% of hotel general managers starting in an entry-level position, the hotel industry creates plentiful opportunities for upward mobility.
Statement of the chairperson of the African Union Commission on the situation in South Africa. Moussa Faki Mahamat condemns in the strongest terms the surge of violence in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng and other parts of South Africa. The chairperson extends his deepest condolences to the families of the victims and wishes a rapid and full recovery to the wounded. The chairperson calls for an urgent restoration of order, peace and stability in the country in full respect of the rule of law. The chairperson reiterates the full and unwavering solidarity of the African Union Commission with the government and people of South Africa. The chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, condemns in the strongest terms the surge of violence that has resulted in the deaths of civilians and appalling scenes of the looting of public and private property, destruction of infrastructure, including the suspension of essential services in KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng and other parts of South Africa. The chairperson extends his deepest condolences to the families of the victims and wishes a rapid and full recovery to the wounded. The chairperson calls for an urgent restoration of order, peace and stability in the country in full respect of the rule of law. He stresses that failure to do so can have grave impacts not only in the country but the region as a whole. The chairperson reiterates the full and unwavering solidarity of the African Union Commission with the government and people of South Africa.
African Tourism Board condemns South African lawlessness. The current situation in the Republic of South Africa is concerning. The worst violence in years broke out after the jailing of former ISA President Zuma. Anger at post-apartheid inequalities underpin riots. Residents organize to protect property, confront looters. South Africa presidency considers further military deployment. The chairman of the African Tourism Board issues a statement. Cuthbert Ncube, the South African-based chairman of the African Tourism Board is appealing for calm in ongoing disputes and violence throughout the Republic of South Africa. The social and political unrest is a threat to travel, tourism, and investment in this part of the country, as KZN is a prime tourist and investment destination in South Africa, and a center for events, culture, and conferences. The media try to spin the looting situation into a political issue, but the reality is that lockdowns are destroying an already poor country. The owner of a tour company in the United States and a member of the African Tourism Board said, I had speculated about what pandemic would do to tourism-dependent societies. I didn't think of South Africa in that list. I had no idea South Africa depended on tourism as much as it did. The question raised in South Africa, former President Jacob Zuma may no longer be in charge. But is anyone? The response, no one is in charge, it's every man for himself. A travel agent in Johannesburg told eTurboNews, I have been trying to re-establish tourism trips to South Africa, but COVID strains, and now riots. Not sure when we are coming back. The chairman of the Eswatini-headquartered African Tourism Board, Cuthbert Ncube, is based in Pretoria, South Africa. He added the African Tourism Board condemns the lawlessness and violence that has swept throughout the province of KwaZulu-Natal, KZN, in South Africa and had escalated to other areas of the country. Stand up for South Africa. Tourism has the potential to be the engine of economic and investment recovery. We, therefore, appeal for calm and restraint from all citizens and political leaders. It's better to create a dialogue and address the fundamental concerns. The resurgence of COVID cases following yet another variant that has grabbed pockets of Africa has delivered another blow to the travel industry. Such unnecessary uprisings will not save the stability and reputation of South Africa and the continent combined. It is only when investors, travelers, businesses have confidence in the systems that the sector will start to recover and flourish again. Let us all restore the pride of our continent, South Africa, and its provinces as the #1 preferred destination of choice for tourism, MICE, investment, and family breakaway destination. The African Tourism Board's mission is for Africa to become one tourism destination of choice in the world. African Tourism Board ambassadors lead the organization throughout the continent. ATB headquarters is in the Kingdom of Eswatini. The African Tourism Board Marketing Corporation is headquartered in the United States of America. More information and membership forms on www.africantourismboard.com.
UAE Embassy in Israel is a new paradigm of peace. Just a short time ago, Israel was not even shown on official maps in the United Arab Emirates. Today the UAE opened its embassy in Tel Aviv, Israel, calling it a new paradigm of peace. The United Arab Emirates formally dedicated its embassy in Tel Aviv. This is just the beginning. In our post-COVID world, those who innovate will lead. Israel's President Isaac Herzog joined UAE Ambassador Mohammed Al-Qajar in cutting a ribbon to open the embassy. The United Arab Emirates formally dedicated its embassy in Tel Aviv. This embassy will serve not just as a home for diplomats but a base for our task to continue to build on our new partnership, to seek dialogue, not dispute, to build a new paradigm of peace, and to provide a model for a new collaborative approach to conflict resolution in the Middle East. UAE Ambassador Mohammed Al-Qajar said on Wednesday morning in front of the new embassy, located in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange building. Since the normalization of ties between Israel and the UAE, we have seen for the first time discussions on trade and investment opportunities, a collaboration between hospitals, universities and research centers, cultural and people-to-people exchanges, cooperation in combating COVID-19, countering cyber threats, and protecting our environment. We signed major agreements across various fields, including economy, air travel, technology, and culture, Qajar said. And this is just the beginning. In our post-COVID world, those who innovate will lead, he also said, adding, the UAE and Israel are both innovative nations. The people in this region are eager for a stable, functioning, and the prosperous Middle East. It is time for new approaches and thinking to set a new and better path for the future of the region, Qajar said. Qajar opened the day's trading on the Tays at the end of the ceremony. Israel's President Isaac Herzog, who joined Qajar in cutting a ribbon to open the embassy, said that, while seeing the Emirati flag flying proudly in Tel Aviv might have seemed like a far-fetched dream just about a year ago, in many ways, nothing could be more natural and normal. So many Israelis and Emiratis have discovered our countries and people share a great deal. We are both nations that cherish our history and traditions while pushing the very boundaries of innovation and science. We are deeply rooted in our land while having our eyes on the stars, while we both build our modern states out of the desert sands. We made the impossible possible. And we have both created vibrant, multicultural societies through an unwavering commitment to religious freedom and human dignity, he said. The peace agreement between Israel and the UAE, Herzog said, will save lives, will help humanity, will help the region, will develop food, water, and medicine for the benefit of humankind, all through people-to-people dialogue. Both of our cultures will be enriched. Herzog praised the leadership of the Emirates for the courageous decision to open the door to a warm friendship between our peoples. It is not only an important step for Israel and the United Arab Emirates, but for the entire Middle East. The Abraham Accords will promote stability, security throughout our region, and will demonstrate to all the tremendous promise and potential of peace. He called for the extension of the agreement to other countries and nations. We are a nation of peace, and those who are interested in peace with us will be welcomed with open arms, he said. Last month, Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, who missed Wednesday's ceremony after being required to quarantine due to an aide testing positive for the coronavirus, opened the Israeli embassy in Abu Dhabi and a consulate in Dubai. Also on Wednesday, UAE Minister for Food and Water Security Mariam Al-Maheri met with representatives of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem to promote a research and innovation partnership based on food tech and ag tech. The meeting is the first official visit of a senior UAE government official to an Israeli academic institution since the two countries agreed to normalize relations. Professor Benny Shefitz, Dean of the Robert H. Smith Faculty of Agriculture, Food, and Environment, called the minister's visit prescient and historic, adding, "We look forward to sharing our know-how with our neighbors in the Middle East so that we may meet the challenges of climate change together and better prepared." Israel and the UAE agreed to the peace deal in August 2020, and signed the Abraham Accords normalizing relations between the two countries in a ceremony in Washington on September 15, 2020. Israel also signed a normalization agreement with Bahrain the same day. U2.B. Marcy Oster contributed to this report. This report is provided by the Media Line. Original content, click here.
Before taking off to your holiday destination, shop and dine at Frankfurt Airport. Many shops and restaurants have reopened at Frankfurt Airport. Tim Mauser's Pezzo di Pane gives you an authentic taste of Italy. There's a broad range of attractive offerings at FRA, from leading German and international brands to locally popular proprietor-led shops and restaurants. Brands including Boss, Fork, Lyot, and Gant beckon with summer discounts and glimpses of the new winter collections. You'll also find an extensive selection of beauty products in the new duty-free store opened by Frankfurt Airport Retail GmbH & Company Kilogram in the non-Schengen transit area of Pier B in Terminal 1. Welcome back to Frankfurt Airport. More and more people are longing to travel again, and passenger volumes at the airport are expanding as a result. Numerous shops and restaurants are also reopening to serve them, and will be ready to welcome you in Terminals 1 and 2 right on time for the start of the summer school holidays in the German state of Hesse on July 16. Finally, we're able to offer our passengers a full range of shopping and dining opportunities again, says Anke Giesen, Fraport AG's executive board member responsible for retail and real estate. Together we're gradually returning to normality after the pandemic-induced dry stretch. And we have every reason to look ahead with optimism. There's a broad range of attractive offerings at FRA, from leading German and international brands to locally popular proprietor-led shops and restaurants. In Terminal 1, passengers and visitors can visit the Shopping Boulevard and Shopping Avenue malls. Brands including Boss, Fork, Lyot, and Gant beckon with summer discounts and glimpses of the new winter collections. You can also head for one of 7 recently reopened travel value and duty-free shops to find an exquisite perfume or gifts for your loved ones at home, or any of a wide range of other attractive products. How about a tasty latte macchiato before taking off? The teams of some 80 cafes and restaurants are overjoyed to be serving guests again. If you wish to dine inside a restaurant, you need to present evidence that you are fully vaccinated or recovered or have recently tested negative. However, all foods and beverages can also be ordered to take away. The food plaza on the top level of Terminal 2 offers guests a breathtaking view of the action out on the airfield and airport apron. There are also new additions at Frankfurt Airport. For example, Tim Mauser and his partners have teamed up with Tellerand Consulting to create and launch a new Italian restaurant dubbed Pezzo di Pane in Pio of Terminal 1 on July 6. Overflowing with La Dolce Vita, it invites guests to enjoy authentic Italian pinzas, fresh salads, or of course pasta come dalla nonna, like grandma's. In this spacious locale sprawling over 170 square meters, you're spirited away to 1960s Italy with plenty to please your eyes and palate. You'll also find an extensive selection of beauty products in the new duty-free store opened by Frankfurt Airport Retail GmbH & Company Kilogram in the non-Schengen transit area of Pier B in Terminal 1. Located right after the security check, it carries more than 30 products from brands including Kiehl's, Tom Ford, NARS and Gucci, as well as luxury skincare products from La Mer and La Prairie and niche brands like Maison Francis Kurkdjian, Acqua di Parma, Joe Malone, and Creed. The new press and bookstore in the Airport City Mall carries not only a huge selection of books, newspapers, magazines, and journals but also all important items that you might need for your trip. E-services for your smartphone are available, and the new shop also offers all popular postal, DHL, and post bank services. For the time being, store business hours are based on passenger volumes in the various areas used by passengers. A basic supply of food and beverages as well as medications and services like money changing and car rentals is also ensured. For an up-to-date overview, please visit www.frankfurtairport.com. After checking in, you can relax and shop to your heart's content. After arriving at the airport, travelers should first proceed to the check-in counter and show all required documents on vaccinations, proof of recovery, or test results, check their luggage, and then keep an eye on how much time is left until their flight departs. The measures currently enforced to prevent infections must be observed, including wearing a medical-grade or FFP2 face mask and distancing yourself from others. You may take the mask off to eat or drink.
WHO Chief, COVID-19 global third wave is here. Delta variant is now in more than 111 countries, so the WHO expects it to soon be the dominant COVID-19 strain circulating worldwide, if it isn't already. In the past week cases of COVID-19 were increasing globally, and deaths have started to go up again. The WHO had slammed a shocking disparity in the global distribution of vaccines. Lack of access to vaccines leaves most of the world's population at the mercy of the virus. The head of the World Health Organization, WHO, announced today that the world is currently in the early stages of a third wave of COVID-19. WHO's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said in his opening remarks at the 8th meeting of the IHR Emergency Committee on COVID-19 that in the past week cases of COVID-19 were increasing globally, and deaths have started to go up again. We are now in the early stages of a third wave, said Ghebreyesus. Moreover, deaths are increasing again after 10 weeks of declines, he added. The Delta variant is one of the main drivers of the current increase in transmission, fueled by increased social mixing and mobility, and inconsistent use of proven public health and social measures, he stated. According to Ghebreyesus, the Delta variant is now in more than 111 countries, so the WHO expects it to soon be the dominant COVID-19 strain circulating worldwide, if it isn't already. The WHO had slammed a shocking disparity in the global distribution of vaccines. Meanwhile, lack of access to vaccines leaves most of the world's population at the mercy of the virus, the WHO Director General said, recalling that many countries still have not received any vaccines, and most have not received enough.